Today we need to talk about a moment where Taeyang was just done, and that's actually a funny story. I also want to get into fans being really upset over Taeyang wearing a durag and what happened there, and then lastly we have people saying that Taeyang's album promotion was destroyed. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave. Decide hate it or not, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. Grab your dumpling, it's Tasty Feeling merch, and let's go. Taeyang had a very interesting rollout for his album. It's definitely one that is very different, and I want people to know that each member has or will have very different promotion styles compared to each other. People look at Jungkook's promotion where he's working with these huge American pop singers, pop producers, and then having things like American radio spin and appearing on those big American talk shows to perform at. Of course, if you look at Jungkook's promotion and then look at even J-Hope's promotion or RM, then there could be a lot of anger towards Hype or Big Hit saying that why do you favor Jungkook so much? Because Jungkook's promotion is much bigger. We quite literally see him everywhere, and I think this is where the misconception comes from. Depending on the type of music the artist makes will depend on a specific rollout strategy, and then also depend where it gets promoted. If Jungkook went to Hybe and was like, I really need an American release, I want to do just English songs, the label will then do their job and try to find American distribution. This means working with those American producers, collaborations, and even American brands. And of course, even on top of all that, because they're working with American distribution, things like budget will be different and the actual distribution of the music will be different. Hence why so many haters say Jungkook participates in payola, when in reality, this is just a very common practice in the US for artists. Now, if you take those practices and look at the other members, you will think it's unfair because those other members aren't being promoted as much. But the label can only do so much if the music isn't on par with the American distribution style or the American market. It's clear with Taeyang's album Layover, the song was never meant to be distributed to an American market or just solely to an American market. So why on earth is the label going to spend money getting the member on American talk shows, American radio, and even paying for ads to market towards Americans? It might end up doing that anyway because things don't just stay isolated, but the intention and who it's supposed to be marketed towards is very different from Jungkook, and that is something the fandom doesn't understand, and then sits there and calls Hybe or Big Hit terrible people for not promoting Taeyang correctly. Taeyang reached his audience, he reached everyone who would like his music. His music is not mainstream pop. It wouldn't make sense for it to be marketed like mainstream American pop. To waste money by pushing this song to American mainstream pop only to have the audience not connect with the music. So people were very upset for a long time to say that Hybe keeps ruining Taeyang's promotion. And I just don't think that is the case. For things like his album not being shipped on time, that's just how the cookie crumbles. Labels will often order a limited amount just so they can sell out, because if they don't sell out, then they look like a flop. And then manufacturing new albums for new inventory takes time. At the end of the day, Taeyang likely does not care about hitting on the charts. I think he is just happy that armies are listening to the music. And quite frankly, the solo stuff was never supposed to be a real comeback. It was supposed to just be something the members can put out and do before BTS comes back altogether again. I think the times in which we saw the members the happiest was definitely the time in which they were all together. They had to put a big halt on their production for Run BTS, Bon Voyage. These were the reality shows where all the boys came together and do fun activities. And it's their own personal variety show. They always looked so happy doing those, and I would imagine it served as almost a break for them. I do react and fangirl over these fun moments on Bon Voyage, Run BTS, and many others over on top of the link in the description. If you're interested in checking out those videos and reacting to them with me, I'll leave a link at the top of the description, as I said, and I hope to see you there. There was a moment that was absolutely hilarious from one of the reality shows that recently resurfaced and went viral again. This was a moment where Taeyang was traveling somewhere and he noticed that he wanted to buy something. He went to count his money only to realize that he does not have enough, and then we have the sad violin music start to play. This is hilarious because it was absolutely a mood, and we definitely all felt this before. I will say, if you are confused how a multi-millionaire doesn't have enough money on them, I can definitely explain. I think it's actually quite normal nowadays to just not have any cash on you. We are a very card and digital heavy society right now, and so it makes sense why we would only carry cards. But many things like a vending machine or even little mom and pop shops that are trying to avoid paying a lot in taxes or avoid paying those credit card fees will just ask for cash only. It is definitely more common in other countries than in the US, but definitely in a lot of places in the US too. The other reason why a lot of celebrities often don't have enough money to buy things is because their team usually is the one that carries money. It's often quite dangerous for a celebrity, a well-known one, to carry a lot of money on them, as they could get attacked, or if you're a woman, you might not have pockets. And then the other idea is that the label often would not want the K-pop idol to just go and buy things that they don't need. So the manager will usually keep the money and then give it to whoever. And then other times, if they're on vacation, they'll just get a set budget to use. This is also a big reason why, even though the boys likely have millions in their bank, they still sometimes act like they're poor because they don't actually ever see the money or are actually able to touch it. A lot of times it is locked away in things like bonds, savings accounts, or even in stock if their financial advisor decides to do that for them. So they actually probably don't have any cash. It's called paper rich but cash poor. However, they are still literally rich. Anyway, it was fun to see Tang's reaction to this and be like, I am so done. I don't want to be poor anymore. And it's like, same. We just want enough money to buy food and buy stuff from vending machines. Tang is always so sweet and such a lovely person, so I was shocked to see a bit of backlash today. So what happened? Well, if you're not aware, Tang recently went on a live stream just to talk to us all. People were very surprised when they noticed a red do-rag in the background, and then of course seeing him wear it. There were a lot of claims of racist and people saying really awful things about Tang. And to this, I will say that there's no surprise that the fandom will take situations, take it out of context, and just overall look for things to be upset about rather than coming at things with understanding and critical thinking. Now, a do-rag is not something that is within my culture, so I cannot definitively say whether wearing it is definitively racist or not. However, I would like to put out an idea, an alternative narrative of the intention, and overall what I think as someone who has studied culture and history. And of course, please do put your thoughts if this is something that involves your culture. A do-rag, to my understanding, is something that a lot of African Americans used to preserve their hair. It became this thing to preserve curls, waves, braids, and it became very synonymous with urban fashion. So that is essentially where the history of that comes from and why it's even a thing that exists in African culture. The idea of Tang wearing this and it being racist comes from this thought of cultural appropriation. Is he someone who is just wearing an accessory that is for black people and then getting praised for wearing it? Meanwhile, while black people wear it, it's seen as ghetto or bad. If you simply just take the historic context of what a do-rag is and urban fashion, I do not see the intent there to hurt or discredit a race. If we want to take it a step further, you could compare it to things like blackface. I would like to use that example because this is similar to what the outrage seems to be like. Blackface was something historically created by people who were not black as a way to mock black people. This is why it's racist and that's why it's so bad. However, Tang, when wearing a do-rag, he is not doing it as a form of mockery. There is no mockery there. And also, it was likely given to him by a black person and he just thought it would be fun to put it on. I really don't see that as a huge issue. And I think if you were not black and you had a friend who had a do-rag sitting there on their desk, you might be like, what does this look like on me? And just try it on. Is this a form of mockery? Are you mocking your friend? Or is it just something you wanted to try because you respect the culture or want to experience it more? So I want to throw that thought out there. People were very upset online and did things like attack him, insult him, threatening to unfollow. And the bottom line is, even if he ends up apologizing and even if it was an action that was seen as racist, if they apologize and never do it again, I would see it as someone who is learning and growing. The whole social racism thing hasn't been around for very long. Like people saying what words and actions you can and cannot do, that has not been around that long. If you go back even a few years, wearing dreads was also not seen as a big deal. So people are still learning. Other countries may or may not learn slower, so please just approach people with a sense of understanding and let them know if you don't like it, but don't yell at them. Let me know what you think. Make sure you check on Patreon for more videos. Link down below. Thanks, just a lovely comment right here. Love you. Bye.